Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information will be U.S. Note 6.14, Election of 2000. It includes information that aligns with the final section on your Unit 6 study guide. Now remember, you have control over this lecture, so use your study guide to figure out what's important to write down. Pause if you need to, write down your questions, and rewatch as often as you need. Let's go ahead and get started. So you now know Clinton served 2 full terms as president, and in 2000 there was an election for a new president. This election was historic and even included the U.S. Supreme Court. Now you want to know more, right? Good. In 2000, Bill Clinton's vice president, Al Gore, ran for president on the Democratic ticket. His Republican challenger was the Texas governor, George W. Bush, whose father, George H.W. Bush, had been president from 1988 to 1992, when Clinton beat him in 92. Now, the campaigns ran as you would expect, nothing extraordinary. Clinton really distanced himself from Gore, mainly due to the impeachment and its subsequent tainting of his reputation. He didn't want to damage Gore's chances of winning the election. And it was not until election night that things really changed. As the votes were counted and coming in, television media was reporting winners for states, and maps were changing colors, red and blue. News shows were calling electoral winners in each state, and then they ran into a problem. Most of the problem was focused in Florida, although there were also some questions regarding Ohio, but it turned out no one was sure who had won. The votes were so close that every single ballot had to be counted by hand. Voting machines were manual, not electronic, and voters pushed a pin through the hole of the person they wanted to vote for. The hole should come completely off the paper. But if it didn't, do you still count that vote? So you can kind of see what they were looking at here on the side. These little hanging pieces of paper are called hanging chads. For weeks, Americans heard stories of hanging chads and counting hanging chads, and whose count and whose don't, and it was pretty much endless. And through it all, we didn't know who our next president would be. Florida's voters would decide the presidency. Whichever candidate won Florida would win the Electoral College and become our next president. And so you can actually see we had all these articles everywhere about it. After weeks, Florida determined George Bush won, but still had votes to count. They just said they were done. Gore challenged that these votes needed to be counted. Adding to this was the fact that this whole scandal and controversy was the fact that Florida's governor, who had appointed the election commissioner who was overseeing all of this and making the determination, was George W. Bush's brother, Jeb. All sorts of conspiracy theories abounded because of that. So in December, more than a month after the actual election and still with no declared winner, the U.S. Supreme Court finally heard the case. The case called Bush versus Gore, where the question became, when is an election officially complete? And in a 5-4 decision, so a split vote, the U.S. Supreme Court declared that the election vote counting was done. It was complete. They said that Florida would use the votes already counted and declare a winner. And so that made George W. Bush the new U.S. president. This was even more controversial because while Bush had been declared the winner of the Electoral College, Gore had actually won the popular vote in the U.S. So more Americans actually voted for Al Gore to be the president than Bush, but Bush won the electoral vote. He got 271 votes. He needed 270 to win. That made him the new president. That's the end of U.S. Note 6.14. I hope you learned something, and I will see you in class tomorrow.